I got back from the Gulf 11 days early, drove 2 hours from Hobby Airport in the kind of exhausted that sits behind your eyes like wet sand, and pulled into my parking spot at Crestwood Commons at 10:17 on a Thursday night in January. With a duffel bag, 9 months of deferred decisions, and no warning text to anyone. My name is Archer Niles. I'm 31 years old, offshore structural engineer, and I had spent the better part of the last 9 months living on a platform 40 miles south of Morgan City, Louisiana, eating cafeteria salmon on Tuesdays, and sleeping through hurricane watches like a man who has made peace with his mortality. The rotation was supposed to run through the 22nd. I came back on the 11th because our relief crew arrived ahead of schedule, and I was not going to argue with a helicopter pointed toward land. My apartment was the second floor of a converted Victorian in the Montrose neighborhood of Houston. Wood floors that creaked in 4 places I had memorized, a kitchen window that faced east and was always too bright in the mornings, and a roommate named Maeve Sheridan, 28, graphic designer, the kind of person who alphabetized her spices but sincerely claimed she was not a control freak. The living room was dark when I let myself in. Kitchen was clear. My bedroom door was open, which was the thing that made me stop walking. I leave it closed, always. Old habit from college, from sharing walls with people who felt entitled to your space if you gave them half an inch. There was light coming through the gap. I am not a dramatic man. I set my duffel by the door. I move down the hall the way you move when your brain is calculating before your feelings have clocked in. Through the crack, I could see my desk chair, occupied. Someone in a green flannel shirt I recognized as mine, hair pulled up in a loose knot, pen moving across a page. I pushed the door open. Maeve looked up. The pen fell out of her hand. It hit the hardwood and rolled under the desk, and neither of us moved to get it. There was a notebook open in front of her, worn brown cover, wire-bound. I recognized it because I had bought it at the CVS on Westheimer 2 weeks before I left, with the idea that I was going to start keeping some kind of log. I had written exactly one entry, a grocery list and a reminder about the leaky bathroom faucet, and then abandoned it in my desk drawer. The notebook was no longer empty. "You weren't supposed to be back yet," Maeve said. Her voice came out very quiet. "Our relief crew came in early," I said. I would have. She reached for the notebook and closed it against her chest in one motion, like it was a living thing she was protecting. "I would have put this back." "Put it back where? That's my desk." "I know that. And that's my notebook." "I know that too." I leaned against the doorframe. I had been awake since 4 a.m. Louisiana time. My shoulder ached in the specific way it always ached after a long flight, and my roommate was sitting in my desk chair, wearing my shirt, holding my notebook against her chest like evidence. "Maeve," I said, "before you say anything." "I haven't said anything." "I know, but your face is doing something," she swallowed. "Just give me a second." I had known Maeve for 2 years. We ended up in the same apartment through a mutual friend from grad school, which is the kind of housing arrangement that either becomes a disaster or becomes something else entirely. In our case, it became a very specific kind of normal that I had not fully appreciated until I was on a platform in the Gulf eating Tuesday salmon and checking my phone for her texts before anyone else's. She was funny in a way that required full attention because her best lines came out sideways while she was talking about something else. She left Post-its on the fridge about things that bothered her, but they were always phrased like internal memos. "Management has been informed that the butter situation is critical." She cried at nature documentaries, specifically at geese, specifically when they migrated, and she maintained, sincerely, that this was a personality strength. "What's in the notebook?" I asked. "Things." That's a broad category. She pressed it tighter against her chest. "Things," I would have said, "if you were here." The room was quiet. Outside, someone drove past with their bass up, and then they were gone, and then it was just us. "How many pages?" I asked. She closed her eyes. "Maeve. A lot of pages." I came off the doorframe and walked to the center of the room. She tracked me, but didn't move. The desk lamp threw everything in warm yellow and shadow, and she looked like a person who had just been caught doing something they could not explain in under 5 minutes. Can I see it? I asked. No. One page. Still no. One line. Archer, you're sitting in my room, in my shirt, writing in my notebook, and you won't read me one line. Her mouth pressed together. She had a very specific look, where she was fighting a smile and losing, and I saw it cross her face and disappear. One line, she said finally. She opened the notebook to somewhere in the middle and read without looking up. The hardware store on Shepherd finally closed down. You said 2 years ago it wouldn't survive, and I never told you that you were right because I didn't want you to get smug about it. I looked at her. That's the one you chose. It's a good entry. You've been writing to me about a hardware store. I've been writing to you about a lot of things. She closed it again. The hardware store wasn't the point. The point was, I was used to telling you things. And then you were gone, and I kept thinking of things to tell you, and you were 9 hours away on a platform with a 2-hour communication blackout window, so instead she gestured at the notebook, started writing them down. I sat on the edge of my bed, left space beside me. Read me another one, I said. No. One more. I just said no. The hardware store one was safe. I met her eyes. Read me one that isn't. She went very still. The neighbor's wind chimes, the ones she had complained about in 3 separate texts over the summer, were going faintly in the January air. I don't think that's a good idea, she said. Why? Because if I read you one of those, you'll know. Know what? She looked at the ceiling. She had the expression of someone asking the universe for very specific patience. You know what, Archer? I want to hear you say it. Her eyes came back down to mine. There was a lot happening in the 2 feet of space between the desk chair and the edge of my bed. Then her phone buzzed on the desk. Once, twice, she ignored it, a third time. You can check it, I said. I don't want to. I'm not going anywhere. She reached for it, glanced at the screen. Her expression shifted, not afraid, just resigned. She turned the phone toward me. The text was from someone named Brooke. Please tell me you cleaned up the situation before he got back. Maeve, answer me. Brooke knows, I said. Brooke has known since April. She set the phone face down. She's had strong opinions. What kind of opinions? That I was being a coward, that you deserve to know, and I was making decisions for you without giving you any information to work with. A pause. She wasn't wrong. I thought about that. 9 months of rotations. 12 weeks on, 3 off, back and forth. We had texted through the blackout windows, called when the connection allowed. She had sent me a video of those wind chimes with the caption, "You owe me for living next to this." I had sent her a photo of sunrise over open water, and she responded, "Okay, fine, the job has one perk." I had told myself what I felt on the platform, that specific awareness of her, the way her texts were the ones I looked for first, the way a slow week felt slower because I had no one to tell about it. I had told myself that was just the isolation talking. I thought about you every day, I said. Not the apartment. Not having someone water the plant I definitely killed before I left. The pathos is thriving, for the record. I thought about you, specifically. She was quiet. I didn't say anything, I continued, because I wasn't sure if it was real or if I was going sideways from 9 months on a platform with 43 roughnecks and one extremely opinionated cook named Hank. Her mouth twitched. How opinionated? He had strong feelings about the right way to fold napkins. We had a meeting about it, with an agenda. She shook her head, but she was smiling now. That's unhinged. Point is, I couldn't trust my own calibration out there, but I'm home now, standing in my room, looking at you in my shirt with a notebook full of things you wrote to tell me. I held her gaze. It's real. Her smile dropped into something more honest. I'm not good at this, she said, the asking for what I want part. I know you file it in memos instead. A surprised laugh. I do not. She stopped. Okay, that is a fair characterization. I stood and crossed the room and held out my hand. She looked at it. Then she took it, and her fingers were warm, and she didn't let go. Read me one, I said, one of the real ones. She looked at the notebook in her other hand for a long moment. Then she opened it toward the back. "This one is from October," she said. "Don't comment until I'm done." "Agreed," she read. Her voice stayed level. "I turned the TV on in the living room before bed tonight because it's too quiet. And the quiet is specifically from your end of the apartment. Your door is closed and I know you're not in there, but something in my body hasn't caught up to that information. I don't know when that stops. I don't know how to explain to anyone why I find that more alarming than the silence itself." She closed the notebook. I didn't comment. I cupped her face in one hand and kissed her. Clean, decided, no preamble, and she made a small sound of surprise that softened into something else entirely. She kissed me back. Her fingers tightened around mine. When we pulled apart, her eyes opened slowly. "Okay," she said. "Yeah," I said. "You could have warned me. You could have mailed me the notebook." She laughed against my jaw. The kind of laugh that sounds like a person remembering how to breathe. Her phone buzzed again. "Brooke, I'm outside. I saw your lights on. Is he home early? Did he find it?" "She's outside," Maeve said. I noticed. She does this. She seems thorough. Maeve texted back one-handed, "He's home. We're fine. Go away." A pause. Then Brooke, "Oh my god. Does fine mean fine or fine fine?" Maeve typed, "Go home, Brooke." 3 separate heart emojis in quick succession, then silence. "She's going to want a full debrief," Maeve said. "Tomorrow. She'll text 17 more times tonight. Let her." She set the phone face down. For a moment we stood there, her hand still in mine, the lamp making everything look like early morning. "There's an entry in March," she said quietly, "when you called me during the bad week. The one where you went quiet for 4 days, and then called and said it was just weather messing with comms." I remembered the week. Equipment failure, 1 close call with a crane, 2 people medically evacuated off the platform. I hadn't told her any of that. I had said it was weather. "Yeah," I said. I knew it wasn't weather. She didn't look away. "I wrote that night. I spent 8 hours wanting to get on a plane, and I don't own any rational reason for that. I called my mom instead, talked about nothing for an hour, a beat. She thought I was calling about a breakup. She gave me the whole speech anyway. It was very thorough. I'm sorry I wasn't straight with you. You were where you needed to be." She looked at our hands. "I just didn't know how to be this far away from whatever was happening to you." We stayed up too late. Not dramatically, we sat on the kitchen floor at midnight with leftover tortilla soup she had in the fridge, and I told her about Hank and the napkin agenda, and she told me about the pothos plant's near-death experience in August and its dramatic comeback in September. She read me 2 more entries from the notebook. One was funny, one was not, and she watched my face while I read it, and I said, "I'm sorry I wasn't here," and she said, "You were where you were supposed to be," and we sat with that for a while. Before I moved to the couch for the night, I insisted. She argued briefly. It was not a long argument. I asked her to dinner. Somewhere with tablecloths. She looked at me like I had suggested something unreasonable. Tablecloths. I've been eating off a tray bolted to a wall for 9 months. I want tablecloths. That's your romantic threshold? Table linen? My bar was on the floor when I left. It has since been recalibrated. I kept her hand. Say yes. She looked at me for one long second. "Yes," she said. "Obviously yes." I woke up on the couch the next morning to coffee smell and her voice on the phone in the kitchen. "Brooke," from the tone of resigned affection. January light came through the east-facing window, too bright, the way it always was. The notebook was on the coffee table. She had left it there, not hidden. On the cover, a sticky note in her handwriting I had not seen the night before. "For when you got back, however long that took." I put the note in my wallet. I still have it. 8 months later, we are not roommates. Same apartment, different arrangement. One set of shelves we built together on a Sunday in April with a toolkit and precisely calibrated disagreements about the instruction manual. The notebook is on the second shelf. She still writes in it. On the nights I am home, sometimes she reads one to me. On the nights she forgets to, I ask. She still alphabetizes her spices. She still cries at migrating geese and calls it a personality strength. She leaves memos on the fridge. But now they say things like management notes, that someone left his boots in the hallway again, and management is choosing not to escalate at this time. I did not know, when I drove home from Hobby Airport in the January dark, that I was driving toward the version of my life that fit. I just knew I was tired, and the platform was behind me, and the lights in my apartment were on in a room where I had not left them. Some things you find by accident. Some things you find because you came home 11 days early, and your roommate forgot to put the evidence away. I think I prefer the second kind.